So, welcome. We're going to be doing a little review with Resident Evil Revelations. Now, Resident Evil is a franchise that has been intertwined with me for better half of my life. And although I have been, you know, a very fond member of the Resident Evil franchise, there are things that I have problems with. There are things that I dislike, agree with maybe on some things, but you know, there are some things I haven't played in the Resident Evil franchise. Whoa, that's a big thing to say right there. But we're gonna be we're gonna be reviewing a little game called Resident Evil Revelations. Now, this is a game that I've only seen like at most maybe 10 minutes of, and that was with my little brother playing it when it first got ported over to the PS3 back in I don't know how many years ago it was, but he sold it, and I never really got an interest to playing it again until now. So let's kind of delve into it. So Resident Evil is known for a couple things. One, it's known for zombies, it's known for puzzles, it's known for item management. But this game kind of throws a lot of those, I guess you could say, standards kind of out the window in some ways. And I'll get to those. But first, let's start off with the story, how it starts off with. So, you play as Jill for the majority of the game. And Jill is heading towards this ghost ship called the Queen Zenobia. Now, I will be frank, this I really did enjoy. Just the imagery of seeing this ship out in the middle of the Mediterranean is where the story takes place for the majority. Now, I don't have a problem at all for the opening sequence. I actually do like it. But it's what the game kind of is what I have a problem with, and we'll get to that. So you go through the ship and you find your first monster, which I'm not going to call a zombie, even though... Oh, that's her.
Oh, shit. You...
Jill, what's wrong?
I found the target, but she's a zombie.
That's a zombie?
Isn't that always the case?
Yeah. So, what happens is that now this becomes a weird episodic TV series kind of Resident Evil. And it's not necessarily good either. And this is where the game really starts to kind of lose its luster. And we're only about 10 to 20 minutes into the game, which is not good. The one big problem with this game is its pacing. And the pacing of Resident Evil Revelations is all over the place. I mean, first you're on the ship, then the next thing you know, you're out on this beach in the Mediterranean Sea, and then you go back to the Queen Zenobia, then you're Chris, and then you become Jill again. It's just all over the place. What the hell's going on? There's a myriad of problems in this game, but that's just one little thing, right? Although that little thing is kind of spread out throughout the entire game. So the next kind of thing we should talk about is, and this is a little bit of where Resident Evil was as a franchise at this particular time. And at the particular time, it was Resident Evil 5 had just dropped, and so this takes place right before Jill, quote unquote, dies. But Resident Evil at this time was about co-op. It was about, online play at the time, which is fine, right? But the lack of isolation kind of hurts the game more than helps it. And I wouldn't mind it if you were just some rogue BSAA agent who happens to stumble upon this, ghost ship, or even hell, just, you get taken prisoner and then just put on this ghost ship of a place, right? The setting of this game, for the most part, is the Queen Zenobia, which is supposed to act as the mansion, which I actually do adore, honestly. But after you meet up with what's his name again? Parker, Lambert, Dallas,
Parker.
I don't remember. Yeah, you meet up with that guy. He doesn't really do much. The AI doesn't really do much in this game at all, which is a little bit of a, co-op type of games. The AI doesn't really do much. And maybe that has to do with the fact that this was a port from the 3DS, which, let's be real here. It didn't support the best hardware for AIs and everything of that nature. So you meet up with him after you guys get separated. Then, you start doing Resident Evil stuff, and then it stops, which I had a problem with. So this is one of the very few times where playing this game wasn't that fun. And it had to deal with the fact that I was actually enjoying my exploration of the Queen Zenobia. But then, the chapter decided to, no more fun. And all of a sudden, that was it. I couldn't play no more. And I had to sit through all of those cutscenes just to pick up where I left off. Now, let's talk a little bit about item management. And I have one big problem with this game's item management. It's the fact that you cannot grab any more ammo than 30 or whatever it was, pistol ammo, all right, handgun ammo. And that really irritates me. As someone who's played a lot of Resident Evil games, that pisses me off to no extent, because I don't understand why I can't make another stack of handgun ammo. I was able to do it in the PS1 days. I was able to do it, with the PS2 days, PS3 days. Why can't I pick up more ammo? Why do I have to sit there like a dumbass thinking that I can pick this up? Why? Why was that changed? There's nothing more aggravating than knowing that your resources are limited because the game says you cannot pick it up, even though you should be able to pick it up. But the item management in this game is rather kind of subpar, honestly. There's obviously, you get key slots, so you don't necessarily have to worry about picking up a key at all, like all modern Resident Evil games except the remakes. With this one, you have to worry more about herbs, and even then you don't even have to worry about the herbs. The item management is just bizarre to me. This is all bizarre to me because you can pick up healing items by just scanning enemies. What? That doesn't make sense to me. Like, where's it come from? Does it just pop out of this weird scanner looking thing? What does it do? By and large, this item management for this particular game really is bad. It's bad. And not to mention, speaking of other type of item managements, weapon management in this game is also really, really bad. So in this game, there are only 3 weapons that you can carry at any point in time. Why? Why can I only have 3? Dude, this game sucks, okay? Only 3. You can only pick up 3. Or I should say, you can only carry 3 throughout the entire game. And there are times where you would need, certain weapons to kind of deal with, a lot of enemies. Like if it was hunters, I would rather have a shotgun. if it was, you know, these weird, these Yu-Gi-Oh card looking things. I don't even know what they're called, honestly. They're like, yeah, they're just weird. But, you know, with those things, I would rather have like some type of machine gun to deal with them. Now, not to mention the fact that you just have to deal with waves and hordes of enemies. That's also not fun. The melee in this game is not necessarily exciting, nor is it appealing. It's not appealing at all to just do this. Okay. By and large, I don't really have a problem with the gun play because the gameplay is not bad. I believe you can walk and shoot at the same time. I believe it was the first Resident Evil game to do that, which is an interesting milestone to have. But is it a good milestone? I don't know. I mean, this game is not that great when it comes to a lot of other things. And speaking of gameplay, now call me a boomer on this one, but why is there no run button in this game? Because I understand, like, maybe you want it to be modern so you don't necessarily have to worry about running, but call me old school, but every single Resident Evil game has had a run button. So why not have a run button? Is it so hard to press a button and then run? I don't know, because, you know, every single game way back when had a run button, right? I just don't understand that. I guess I'm too old for that. Oh, sorry. The other thing I have a problem with is the fact that you have this upgrade system, which is mods. And the mods in this game are kind of lackluster. There's nothing very crazy about them, or the ones that I saw. The only crazy one was towards the end of the game, and that was for the shotgun, which was kind of neat, but at the same time it was useless because it only came towards like the last chapters of the game, and so I barely used it, and I had no appeal to go back and play it again. Now, let's talk a bit about the puzzles. The puzzles in this game are they're just kind of, well, there's not much. There's not much puzzles to this. This is kind of like a Resident Evil 5 in the mansion. That's the type of vibe I get with this game. There's not much to puzzles. There's not really much to any of the puzzles. You get a card key, you get a key, and then you just go to the next objective. There's nothing to exploration, and that is a little bit of a, it's not appealing. So the other thing we got to talk about is the backtracking. So while the backtracking, I do have to admit, the map took a little time to get used to, which a lot of, Resident Evil games, the map kind of gets a little bit hard to get used to. But this one in particular, because there was like multiple levels and it's just so cumbersome. It's almost like a Metroid Prime type of map, honestly. So the mini-map, pretty good, I would say, in terms of figuring out where you want to go. But it just doesn't tell you where the main objective is in terms of where you need to go sometimes, which is fine. It's just, in order to figure out where the next objective is, you have to check your map objectives and then figure out where you have to go. So there's a little bit of problem solving there, which I'm fine about. But man, the ship is pretty big, and there's a lot of loading zones, and sometimes you're there waiting for a long time just for the game to load. Now, obviously my copy was on the Steam, so obviously I'm using the high-powered processing power of a PC. So being the fact that I had to wait still about a good 5 minutes to get to one end of the ship to the other is still, there were still quite a few loading zones. So let's talk a little bit about the overall experience that I kind of had with this. Resident Evil Revelations didn't really impress me with a lot of its glamour. And that has to do with the fact that back in about 2009-10, whenever E3 was, whatever E3 it was. So this game had a different story tied to it. And the story had Jill and Chris at odds with each other. Now, that was pretty exciting, honestly, but then it was revealed that it was going to be a 3DS only type of game. Obviously, that's not the case, but at the time, it was still not exactly the Resident Evil game that you kind of wanted to get, right? Not exactly sure how many rewrites there were, but with the game that we got, the story was not that great. There were some moments that I actually had a really good time with. There were some characters that I actually genuinely liked, but overall they were not necessarily the focal point of the story. The story and the pacing both combined for a very sour experience because I don't remember these two idiots' names. I don't remember their names.
O'Brien speaking. What's...
This is Jackass. I got the coordinates on the ship. I'm sending...
But you go on a mission in the Arctics or wherever it was in Russia to go and do something, pick up a key or some kind of black box, I think it was. After that, you would just bounce around between Jill and then Chris, and then you would jump back to them for a bit, and then the whole thing was just, it was discombobulating, one thing, because going from one character to another and then, you know, not understanding what was going on in this situation, you had to piece everything together, and sometimes piecing everything together was not fun. There was just nothing to it. There was no added layers. There was nothing there that went, oh, aha, this mystery was solved. No, there was nothing there that was, it was just kind of lackluster, all of it. Then it came to some of the backstories for a lot of the characters involved, and that was not fun either because a lot of it was useless. And it set up, I guess, some kind of strain on, you know, certain characters' viewpoints. But the entirety of the sequence of going and suppressing the Hunter raid, that was not fun. I legitimately didn't think it was fun. It was boring, and I didn't want to be in that place. I forgot what it was called. Again, I didn't see a point to it. So it wasn't really a good experience. Now, something that I do have to at least mention is the fact that the way we're rating this is 1 out of 5. Okay? And the reason why we're doing 1 out of 5 and not like 1 out of 10 or whatever is because the lower the score, the more accurate I can be with certain mechanics, things that I kind of know and look for in a game. So the gameplay by far and large is something of a little bit of Resident Evil 5 with a little tweaked mechanics here and there. One thing I didn't mind too much was the new dodge mechanic. The dodge mechanic I thought was interesting, but it's clumsy. It's really clumsy because there are times where I didn't understand what it meant by flicking your controller up or down to try and avoid something. And in theory, it might seem, like a cool idea, but in practice, it's not that great. Every now and then, I would be able to do it on reaction, but a lot of the times I just was not invested at all. So that was a big point of like, it's not that great, but it's okay kind of thing. I mean, a lot of the mods I actually enjoyed, like the charge system for the shotgun towards the end of the game. Oh, okay, so there's a little icon. Ah, there it is. Oh, Jesus. The pacing of the game, I've said before and many, many times, is just trash. I mean, I'm sorry if you like this game. I don't mind that you like it, but the pacing was just trash. There was nothing appealing to it. Going from one character to another character was just... it's bad storytelling, honestly. And the music in this game is not necessarily... I didn't really hear anything at all. There wasn't anything going on. There was not much ambience. It was just a lot of talking throughout the entirety of the game. And because of that, a lot of the music wasn't necessarily able to come through during the slower sequences. And one of the problems I had was the fact that a lot of the CGI moments, it was just the fact that the music would just play towards like an epic scene or something, but it wouldn't really have anything Resident Evil kind of vibe to them. It was just like a generic Call of Duty type of soundtrack to it. So it wasn't necessarily mind-boggling, or there was nothing really catchy. It was just meh. Now the visuals, while I must say it's dated because this is a game from olden times, it's not bad when it comes to certain sequences. Like there's the boat sequence, which is supposed to harken back to Resident Evil 5, where you're going up against the guy, I forgot his name, the guy who talk a little bit like this,
Oh, I'm not like them. I'm a businessman with standards.
You know what I mean. I forgot his name. Irving, I think it was his name was. So that guy, I totally forgot and blanked him out. A very disgusting monster he was. But for some reason, they don't really talk about what the hell the thing is towards the end of the game. That big monstrosity. And I do have to say, that was actually a visually stunning kind of moment there. But it was very much on rails, kind of like FPS shooter, House of the Dead type of thing. I do have to admit, I was kind of in awe of it because it was actually really enjoyable to see the whole thing from a sky view. But the story, oh boy, the story is just bad. I don't have anything good to say about the story. The story is just trash. And the reasons and motivations for the antagonist is, I don't know, it's just dumb, mind-blowing, and just aggravatingly like, oh, he's evil for evil's sake, which is the most boring type of villain you can have. So, I mean, the fact that you're going from one place to another because, oh, we lost contact with Chris. Okay, cool. Oh, we lost contact with Jill and forgot his name.
Parker.
Yeah, that guy. I don't know. It's just one of those things that the story wasn't that great. I understand it was supposed to take place before Resident Evil 5, so that there has to be some continuity issues there, but by and large, it really isn't that great of a game. Now, I have heard about the mercenary mode for Resident Evil Revelations, which is mercenary mode is, by and large, is always a good thing for most of the Resident Evil games because they're all good. They're all good. And I don't really have anything else to say about this game. So I give it a 2 out of 5, honestly. It's not necessarily up to standard, and there's a lot of things that are okay, but overall this is kind of one of the more this is more of the lackluster of Capcom games. So if you enjoy the video, hey, you don't need to know what I'm gonna say. Anyways, you know exactly what I'm about to say, and I'm not gonna say it. So if you enjoyed the video, thanks, and I'll see you later. Peace.
He never got the hint. What a drag.
Maybe he's already taken, Jessica.
Yeah, he's married to his work.